March 8th, 2014. A Boeing 777 takes off from Kuala Lumpur. 239 people on board. 38 minutes later, the transporter just goes dark.
No mayday, no wreckage on radar, no explanation. Just a plane that turned off the map.
12 years later, this year, the most advanced search team on Earth went back one more time. Underwater drones that can dive 6 kilometers deep. AI mapping the seafloor faster than any human ever could.
And after searching over 7,000 kilometers of ocean floor, they found nothing again.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Think Now podcast. I am Abhishek Subramaniam.
And I am Varun.
Today, we are opening three files: one plane, one visitor from outside our solar system, and 9 hikers who walked into the Ural Mountains and never walked out.
Science has answers for almost everything now, be it the black holes, gene editing, quantum computers. But these three, even in 2026, with satellites and supercomputers and everything, we've only got theories, but not answers.
So, buckle up. By the end of this, you're still going to know more than most people on the internet arguing about this stuff. And you're still going to be confused. That's the deal today.
Let's go.
Let's talk about the file 1, Flight MH370. Let's do the facts fast before most people could only remember the headline, not the details.
On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. 38 minutes in, the transponder cuts off over the Gulf of Thailand.
Military radar picks it up doing something insane. It turns back, crosses the Malay Peninsula, and then just heads out over the Indian Ocean in the opposite direction of Beijing.
For a plane that's supposedly not communicating, it sent 7 automatic handshake pings to a satellite over the next few hours. That's it. That's basically the only breadcrumb trail we have.
Here's where it gets current. Malaysia signed a no find, no fee deal with a company called Ocean Infinity. If they don't find the plane, they don't get paid a rupee.
The search ran in 2 phases, March 2025, then December 2025 into January this year. State-of-the-art autonomous underwater vehicles, 6,000 meter depth capability, mapping a new 15,000 square kilometer zone they call the highest probability area.
And on March 8, 2026, 12 years to the day since the plane vanished, the Malaysian government told the families nothing. No wreckage, no fuselage, no black box.
Since 2018, this one company alone has spent 151 days at sea and mapped more than 140,000 square kilometers of open ocean. That's an area bigger than half of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Kerala combined. Scan meter by meter and still nothing.
And this is the part where most people miss. This case is actually cold. There's a barnacle.
A barnacle, as in the sea creature?
As in the sea creature. Scientists studying a confirmed piece of MH370 debris, a flaperon that washed up on Reunion Island in 2015, found barnacle shells growing on it. And barnacle shells lay down chemical layers, almost like tree rings, based on the water temperature they were growing in.
So, a marine geochemist can, in theory, read the barnacle's shell like a diary and trace backward, cooler water, warmer water, toward the actual point where the plane hit the ocean.
It's not confirmed. It's not going to airlift a black box out of the sea tomorrow. But it's the first genuinely new lead in years. And it's coming from an organism that was just quietly hitchhiking on a piece of wreckage the whole time.
There's also the fuel exhaustion theory and the WSPR radio signal theory, where researchers claim faint, amateur radio disturbances across the globe can be used like a passive sonar to trace the plane's flight path. It's controversial. A lot of actual aviation scientists are skeptical of it.
And the human theory that this wasn't a mechanical failure at all, that someone in the cockpit made a choice. Investigators found a flight path programmed into the captain's home flight simulator 6 weeks earlier that eerily mirrors that plane's actual final route into the southern Indian Ocean.
which, if true, is one of the most unsettling things in aviation history. Not a malfunction, but a decision.
Ocean Infinity's contract technically runs out this June. They have said the mission isn't over, just paused. Voice 370, the group representing the victims' families, is out there right now, publicly begging the Malaysian government not to let this go cold again.
So here's the actual, honest status of the biggest aviation mystery alive today. We have a satellite ping trail, a barnacle that might hold a geochemical signature, a simulator flight path that match too well to ignore, and 239 people who are still technically just missing.
Not dead, not found, missing 12 years later.
Okay, now file 2 is going to sound like science fiction, but I promise you, every fact I'm about to say is from a peer reviewed paper or a space agency, not a YouTube thumbnail.
Last July, a telescope in Chile called Atlas picked up a tiny moving speck, not from our solar system, but from outside it. Only the third object like this ever recorded in human history.
It got the name 3I slash Atlas. The 3I literally means third interstellar object. The first was Oumuamua in 2017, the cigar shaped one that half the internet decided was an alien probe. The second was a comet in 2019 that behaved completely normally.
Number three is the strange one. This thing is estimated to be somewhere between 10 and 12 billion years ago. Meaning, number three is the strange one. This thing is estimated to be somewhere between 10 and 12 billion years old, meaning it is very likely older than our own sun. It has been drifting through the galaxy since before our solar system existed.
Let that sit for a second. You're talking about a chunk of ice and rock that was already ancient when Earth was still a ball of molten rock.
It came in on a hyperbolic trajectory, meaning it's not orbiting anything. It's just passing through permanently and it's leaving forever. It made its closest paths to Jupiter this March and is now headed back out into the deep space, never to return.
Here's where it gets weird. JWST, the James Webb Space Telescope, found something in this comet's chemistry that has never been recorded in any object in our solar system. A methane to water ratio about 11 times higher than anything we've ever measured.
And separately, a team uses a radio telescope in Chile called ALMA found the water in this comet had an insanely high level of deuterium, that's heavy hydrogen, over 40 times what you'd find in Earth's oceans.
What that tells scientists is this thing didn't form anywhere near a sun like ours. It formed somewhere brutally cold, way out on the edge of some other star system, and it's been preserved that way for billions of years.
Now, because you knew that this was coming, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb went on television this year and openly asked whether the methane levels could point to something biological, microbes in the comet.
And to be fair to the actual scientific establishment, NASA and pretty much every major astronomer working on this says no, it's a natural comet, full stop. A team ran a search using the Allen Telescope Array, sifted through nearly 74 million radio signals looking for any kind of artificial transmission.
Zero techno signatures, nothing. It's not broadcasting anything. It's not maneuvering by every measurable stand. It's a comet.
But Leo still points to some genuinely strange coincidences. The comet's path lines up almost perfectly with the plane where all our planets orbit, which statistically should almost never happen for something coming from truly random interstellar space. And its closest approaches to Mars and Jupiter happened at oddly precise distances.
So, the honest answer, the one that won't get clipped into a conspiracy reel, is this. 3A slash Atlas is almost certainly the oldest natural object humanity has ever directly observed. Older than the sun, older than the earth. It swung through our neighborhood once, got measured by nearly every major telescope and spacecraft we had, and it's already gone.
We got maybe 11 months with a visitor from a different star system, and now it's back out in the dark, and we will probably never see it again or anything exactly like it again in our lifetimes.
It's not aliens, but it's also not nothing. It's proof that stuff older than our entire solar system is just drifting through the galaxy, and every few years, one of them brushes past us. File 3. This one's older. No satellites, no telescopes, just 9 bodies and a mountain that locals already had a nickname for before any of this happened.
That's called the Dead Mountain. That's literally what the Mansi people who lived in that part of the Ural Mountains in Russia call it, generations before 1959.
February 1959. 9 experienced hikers, university students, most of them skilled skiers and mountaineers, set up camps on the slope of that mountain. Something happens in the middle of the night.
And here's the detail that makes this different from every other people's went missing in the woods story. They didn't go missing. Search teams found the tent, it had been cut open from the inside.
Not from the outside, from the inside. Like something made these experienced outdoor men so frightened in the middle of a Siberian winter night that slicing open their own tent and running into minus 30-degree weather in socks or barefoot was the safer option.
Their bodies were found scattered, some more than a kilometer from the tent. Some had fractured skulls and broken ribs. Injuries investigators said were consistent with the force of a car crash, but with no external wounds, no cuts, no bruises on the skin above the fractures.
One woman was missing her tongue and eyes for decades. That detail alone fueled every wild theory you can imagine. Military cover up, secret weapons testing, even yes, people online insisting it was aliens.
The Soviet investigation at that time officially closed the case with the vaguest possible explanation on record. Quote, a compelling natural force. They didn't specify what that force was and then they sealed the files for decades.
That single unexplained sentence is basically why this case has become a global obsession. A government said something happened. We're not telling you what, and then close the file.
So let's talk about where the science actually landed. Russian investigators reopened the case in 2019 and by 2020 had officially landed on the avalanche as the cause. But that theory had a hole in it. The slope, the slope was considered too gentle for a classic avalanche, and the injuries didn't look like a typical avalanche crash.
That's where it gets interesting. In 2021, two Swiss researchers, Johann Gaume at EPFL and Alexander Puzerin at ETH Zurich, ran a full physics simulation to actually test whether an avalanche could have done this on a specific slope. And here's the detail that makes this one memorable. Gaume adapted the same snow physics code Disney's animators used to make realistic snows in Frozen.
Their theory is that a slab avalanche, not the dramatic Hollywood kind what you're picturing right now, a smaller delayed slab of snow and ice that can happen hours after a cut is made in the slope, which is exactly what happens when you dig into a hillside to pitch a tent.
The simulations showed that a slab avalanche hitting people while they're lying down, especially if they're partially inside a rigid structure like the tent, could produce exactly like this kind of injury. Internal trauma, broken ribs, and skull fractures with no external cuts. Because it's blunt force pressure, not an impact from something sharp.
It would also explain why they cut their way out from the inside in a panic. If you think the entire slope above you might collapse again any second, right? You're not stopping to find the zipper.
And the missing eyes and tongue? Grim, but explainable. Bodies exposed for weeks in a ravine partially submerged in a stream are subject to scavenging animals and decomposition. Forensic pathologists say that's consistent, not sinister.
So, does that close the file? For a lot of scientists, mostly yes. It's the most rigorously modeled explanation that exists, published in a real peer reviewed journal, not a documentary.
And there is always a but with this one. Critics point out the avalanche theory still doesn't perfectly explain why they ran so far from the tent instead of just taking shelter nearby, or account for every single detail investigators logged at the scene in 1959. Some of the original case files, even now, are only partially declassified.
Which means the most likely explanation is snow physics and human panic in the dark. Not a monster, not a weapon test, but most likely still isn't proven, right? And that gap between most likely and proven is exactly where this case has lived for 67 years. So look at what we just walked through. A plane the ocean is still hiding, a visitor older than our sun that already left, and a mountain that best guess killed 9 people with physics but won't hand over the last 10% of the story.
Three completely different fields: aviation forensics, astrophysics, and avalanche science. And in every single one, the scientists did everything right: sonar, spectrometers, physics simulations, and still hit a wall.
That's honestly the most stoic thing I can say about this whole episode. Marcus Aurelius has that line: you have power over your mind, not outside events. We don't get to choose whether the ocean gives up MH370, we only get to choose how carefully we keep asking.
That's the real theme today. Not these mysteries are unsolvable, ooh, spooky. It's the thing comfortable with an open file, with genuinely not knowing that it is a different skill that doom scrolling for an answer. Real investigators, real scientists, they sit in this discomfort for decades.
Which is honestly a good note to end on because I still don't know how I feel right now. And that's all from our side today. If you learned something valuable, make sure to follow us and
Stay curious, stay confused. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
bye.